Winifred signed the papers without reading a single word. She was too excited about marrying a rich man. 1 year later, when the divorce papers came, she discovered those signatures had cost her everything. Winifred had always been clear about one thing in life. She wanted to marry a rich man. It did not matter if he was kind or mean, loving or cold. As long as the man had money, she was interested. Love was never part of her plan. She just wanted the good life: expensive clothes, luxury cars, and a big house where she could relax in air conditioning all day long. Winifred worked as a receptionist in a small office. The pay was not much, but it was enough to get by. However, she dreamed of more. She dreamed of a life where she would never have to work again, a life where money would never be a problem. Then one day, she met Harry. Harry was a successful businessman. He owned several companies and had more money than most people could imagine. He was handsome, well-dressed, and drove the kind of car that made heads turn. When Harry showed interest in Winifred, she could not believe her luck. This was it. This was her chance, her ticket to the life she had always wanted. Harry was a gentleman. He took her to expensive restaurants, bought her gifts, and treated her like a queen. Winifred enjoyed every moment of it. In her mind, she had already won. She had found her rich man. After 6 months of dating, Harry proposed. Winifred said yes immediately. She did not need time to think about it. This was what she had been waiting for her whole life. The wedding was beautiful. It was held in one of the finest hotels in the city. There were flowers everywhere, a live band, and guests dressed in their best clothes. Winifred wore a stunning white dress that cost more than she used to earn in 6 months. She felt like a princess. Harry smiled throughout the ceremony. He looked genuinely happy. Winifred smiled too, but for different reasons. She was not thinking about love or building a future together. She was thinking about the wealth she was about to access. She was thinking about how she would live large and enjoy Harry's money. A few days before the wedding, Harry's lawyer had given Winifred some documents to sign. There were many papers. The lawyer explained that these were standard marriage documents, property agreements, and other legal paperwork that needed to be completed before the wedding. Winifred barely listened. She was too excited about becoming Mrs. Harry. She was too busy planning her new lifestyle. When the lawyer pointed to where she should sign, she signed without reading anything. Page after page, she just signed her name. She trusted Harry, and besides, all these papers were just boring legal stuff that didn't really matter. What Winifred did not know was that among those documents was a prenuptial agreement, a prenup. This document stated clearly that if the marriage ended in divorce, Winifred would get nothing from Harry's wealth. She would leave the marriage with only what she came with. But Winifred had no idea. She had signed it without reading a single word. Harry's lawyer had explained everything, but Winifred was not paying attention. She was looking at her phone, texting her friends about the wedding. Now that signature would change everything. As soon as they returned from their honeymoon, Winifred put her plan into action. The very first thing she did was quit her job as a receptionist. When she told Harry, he asked, "Are you sure? Do you have other plans? Maybe a new career you want to pursue?" Winifred waved her hand dismissively. "Why would I work when I am married to you? I want to enjoy my life now. I have worked hard for years. It is time to rest and enjoy." Harry nodded slowly but said nothing more. He simply went to his study and closed the door. Winifred didn't care about his reaction. She was free. No more waking up early for work, no more dealing with rude customers or boring office tasks. She was now a rich man's wife, and she planned to live like one. Next, Winifred started spending money like it was going out of fashion. She went shopping almost every day. Designer bags, expensive shoes, jewelry, perfumes, and clothes. Her closet quickly filled up with items she probably never would wear. But she didn't care. It felt good to spend money. She also started hanging out with a new group of friends. These were women who spent their days at expensive cafes, went to parties every weekend, and lived for luxury. They welcomed Winifred into their circle, and she loved it. Finally, she was living the life she had always dreamed of. But Winifred's plan did not stop at just enjoying Harry's money. She had a bigger goal. She wanted to frustrate Harry so much that he would ask for a divorce. And when he did, she believed she would be entitled to half of everything he owned. That was how it worked in the movies, right? When rich people divorced, the wife always got half. So Winifred started misbehaving on purpose. She stopped cooking completely. Harry would come home from a long day of work, tired and hungry, only to find the kitchen empty. No food, no preparation, nothing. "Winifred, did you cook anything today?" Harry would ask, tiredly. "I was busy," Winifred would reply without looking up at her phone. "Order something if you are hungry. You have money, do you not?" Harry would sigh and order food for himself. He never complained. He would just eat quietly and go to his room. Winifred also stopped taking care of the house. Clothes were scattered everywhere, dishes piled up in the sink. The living room was always messy. When Harry hired a housekeeper to help, Winifred would send the woman away, claiming she didn't like strangers in her house. But the truth was, she wanted Harry to see the chaos. She wanted him to feel uncomfortable. She started coming home late from parties, sometimes at 2 or 3 in the morning. Harry would be awake, sitting in the living room, waiting for her. "Where have you been?" Harry would ask calmly. "Out with friends," Winifred would reply with a shrug. "Do I need your permission to go out?" Harry never raised his voice. He would just shake his head and go to bed. Winifred also became disrespectful to Harry's family. When his mother came to visit, Winifred barely greeted her. She would stay in her room, claiming she had a headache or was too tired to entertain guests. Harry's mother was hurt, but she said nothing. She didn't want to cause problems in her son's marriage. When Harry's younger sister came to stay for a few days during her school holiday, Winifred made sure she felt unwelcome. She would make rude comments and refuse to cook or help in any way. The poor girl left after just 2 days, telling her brother she would rather stay with friends. Harry noticed everything. He saw how his wife was behaving. He saw the disrespect, the laziness, the carelessness, but he remained calm. He never shouted, he never threatened. He just watched and waited. After 1 year of marriage, Harry came home one evening with an envelope. Winifred was lying on the couch, scrolling through social media when he walked in. "Winifred, we need to talk," Harry said, his voice serious. Winifred looked up, a small smile forming on her lips. This was it. This was her chance, her ticket to the life she had always wanted. "What is it?" she asked, trying to sound innocent. Harry handed her the envelope. "I am filing for divorce." Winifred's heart jumped with joy, but she kept her face neutral. She opened the envelope and pulled out the papers. She pretended to read them, but inside she was celebrating. Finally, all her hard work had paid off. Soon she would walk away with millions. Half of everything Harry owned would be hers. "If that is what you want," Winifred said, trying to sound sad, "I will sign." "Good," Harry replied. "My lawyer will contact you to finalize everything." That night, Winifred called her friends. "Girls, I am about to be a very rich divorcee," she said, laughing. "Harry just asked for a divorce. I'm about to get half of everything he owns." Her friends cheered for her. They planned a celebration. They talked about all the trips they would take with Winifred's divorce money. Winifred went to bed that night dreaming of her new life as a wealthy, single woman. A week later, Winifred sat in a lawyer's office. But it was not just any lawyer. It was Harry's lawyer, the same man who had given her documents to sign before the wedding. The lawyer was professional and direct. "Mrs. Winifred, I am here to explain the terms of your divorce settlement." "Yes, yes," Winifred said, impatiently. "Just tell me how much I'm getting. Half of everything, right?" The lawyer looked at her with a blank expression. "No, Mrs. Winifred, you are not getting half of anything." Winifred's smile disappeared. "What do you mean? I am her wife. When people divorce, the wife gets half. That is the law." The lawyer shook his head. "Not when there is a prenuptial agreement in place." "A what?" Winifred asked, confused. "A prenup," the lawyer explained slowly. "Before your wedding, you signed a prenuptial agreement. This document clearly states that in the event of a divorce, you would leave the marriage with nothing from your husband's wealth. You would only keep what you brought into the marriage and what you earned during the marriage." Winifred felt like the ground had opened beneath her. "No, that is not possible. I did not sign anything like that." The lawyer pulled out a thick file. He opened it and showed her a document with her signature at the bottom. "This is your signature, is it not?" Winifred stared at the paper. It was her signature. She remembered signing papers before the wedding, but she had not read them. She had been too excited, too careless. But that is not fair," Winifred stammered. "I did not know what I was signing." "That is not Mr. Harry's fault," the lawyer said firmly. "You had every opportunity to read the document or hire your own lawyer to review it before signing. You chose not to. The agreement is legal and binding." Winifred's hands started shaking. "So what am I getting?" The lawyer looked at his notes. "According to the agreement, you will receive nothing from Mr. Harry's wealth. You quit your job shortly after marriage and have not earned any income since then. Therefore, you will leave this marriage with nothing." "Nothing?" Winifred's voice was barely a whisper. "Nothing," the lawyer confirmed. "Mr. Harry is being generous enough to give you 1 month to move out of the house and find your own accommodation. After that, you are on your own." Winifred sat there in shock. This could not be happening. This was not how it was supposed to go. She had planned everything so carefully. She had made Harry miserable on purpose. She had quit her job, she had spent his money, and now she was getting nothing. Winifred left the lawyer's office in a daze. She could not believe what had just happened. All her plans, all her schemes, all her calculations had been for nothing. She had played herself. When she got back to the house, Harry was in his study. She knocked on the door. "Come in," Harry said. Winifred entered, her eyes red from crying. "Harry, please, can we talk about this? I am sorry. I will change. I will be a better wife. Please do not divorce me." Harry looked at her calmly. "Winifred, you never wanted to be a good wife. You only wanted my money. From day one, that was your only goal." "That is not true," Winifred lied. "Please do not insult my intelligence," Harry said quietly. "I knew exactly what you were doing. The quitting your job, the disrespect, the late nights, the mess in the house. You were trying to frustrate me into divorcing you so you could take half my wealth. But I am a businessman, Winifred. I always protect my assets. That's why I had you sign a prenup." Winifred's legs felt weak. "You knew? This whole time you knew what I was planning?" "Of course I knew," Harry replied. "But I wanted to give you a chance to change. I waited to see if you would become a real partner, a real wife. But you never did. You only got worse. So yes, we are getting divorced, and you are getting nothing." Winifred fell to her knees. "Please, Harry, I have nothing. No job, no money, no savings. What will I do?" Harry stood up. "You will do what you should have been doing all along. You will work, you will take care of yourself, you will learn that money is not everything, and that marriage is not a business transaction." 1 month later, Winifred moved out. She had nowhere to go, so she went to stay with her mother in a small apartment across town. Her mother was not happy to see her. "I told you not to marry for money," her mother said. "I told you to find a good man who loves you, but you didn't listen." Winifred had no response. Her mother was right. She tried to contact her party friends, the ones who had celebrated with her when she thought she was getting divorced, but none of them answered her calls. Now that she was poor again, they wanted nothing to do with her. Winifred had to find a job, but it was not easy. She had quit her last job without notice, and when potential employers called for references, they got bad reports. It took her 3 months to finally find work as a waitress in a small restaurant. The pay was terrible, barely enough to cover her basic needs. Every day was a struggle. She woke up early, worked long hours, and came home exhausted. Her hands became rough from washing dishes. Her feet hurt from standing all day. This was the life she had tried so hard to avoid, and now it was her reality. One day, while serving customers, she saw Harry walk into the restaurant with a woman. She was beautiful, well-dressed, and she was laughing at something Harry said. They looked happy together. Winifred felt a sharp pain in her chest. That could have been her. If she had been a good wife, if she truly cared about Harry instead of just his money, that could have been her sitting there, happy and loved. But it was too late now. She had made her choice, and now she was living with the consequences. Months turned into years. Winifred continued working as a waitress. She eventually got a small apartment of her own, nothing fancy, just a single room with a tiny kitchen. It was a far cry from the mansion she had lived in with Harry. She learned to cook for herself. She learned to manage her money carefully. She learned the value of hard work. Most importantly, she learned that money without character is meaningless. One evening, as she sat in her small apartment eating a simple meal, Winifred thought about everything that had happened. She thought about how greed had blinded her. She thought about how she treated Harry, his family, and everyone around her. She felt ashamed. If she could go back in time, she would do everything differently. She would have read those documents before signing them. She would have kept her job. She would have been a good wife to Harry, not because of his money, but because that was the right thing to do. But life doesn't give you second chances like that. Life teaches you lessons the hard way, and Winifred learned hers.
Moral of the story: when you marry for money, you will pay for it in other ways. True wealth is not found in bank accounts, but in good character, honest work, and genuine relationships. Greed blinds us to what really matters, and those who chase money above all else often end up with nothing. Always read what you sign, and remember that shortcuts in life usually lead to dead ends.